So we're beginning to record the session. We'll let everybody come in from the waiting room. So you are in listen only mode. We cannot hear you or see you. If you have a question, put it in the chat box. We will record the presentation this evening and post it to the MeBe website. So if at any point, if you have to dash off and you don't get to watch the whole thing, we'll have the recording on the MeBe website, and then we will also send a follow-up email to everybody who registered to the webinar that'll include the link to the recording and the link to view the presentation so you can go back and see it again later. All right, so to get started, we have a couple of questions for you. So I'm going to load up a poll here as a few people are still coming in. Since we can't hear you or see you, we do want to learn a little bit more about you. So the first question here is, what is your child's age? And if you have more than one kiddo, you're welcome to select more than one. So let us know how old your kids are, and that'll help us when we give examples and customize the presentation for you. All right, I'll give it a couple more minutes. I still see some people voting. And I'm going to end the poll in just a second here. See, some people are still coming in. So if you've just joined us, we are recording the session. We'll post the recording to the website. And all of the attendees are in listen only mode. So you can enter a question in through the chat box. And right now I just have a poll up here asking your child's age so we can get to know you a little bit better. All right, I'm going to end that poll. And if we missed you, you can send us a note in the chat box as well. Okay. And another question for you here. Who is supporting your child during distance learning? So let us know who's working with your kiddo so that we can better understand again who's working with your kids at home. So thanks, I can see a lot of participation, so thank you very much for people who are responding to our poll. I'll give it another couple seconds here to let people respond. All right. So mom and dad primarily. All right, another question for you. Short little quiz here for you. How many hours per day is your child participating in distance learning? So that could include time that your kid may be spending in a Zoom or virtual or online platform, plus your asynchronous time where your child is doing some work that the teacher has provided. So let us know about how many hours per day your child is participating in distance learning. I see the results coming in, so thanks again for everybody who's participating. I'm going to give it another couple seconds here. I still see some people joining us. All right, I'm going to share this one. Wow, 5 to 6 hours, that's a long day. Okay. Perfect. And then I've got one more question for you, and then this will help us so we can customize our presentation this evening. Are your challenges with distance learning more with the virtual class time, like Zoom, or with the asynchronous time, or both? And I'll give it a few more seconds here. I see some people are still joining our webinar, so I'll let everybody have a chance to respond. And I will close the poll in just a second. See some people still responding. So thank you again for participating. And I'm going to close the poll and share that out. Okay. All right. Thank you so much. And for those of you who did just join, the session's being recorded and will be posted onto the MeBe website. We'll send a follow-up email with the link to the recording and the resources and the presentation for you as well. And if you have any questions or comments, please use the chat box. We cannot hear you or see you, so you're muted and we can't see you. So just go ahead and use the chat box if you have any questions. All right, so I'll pass it over to Angela and Shelby to present our webinar this evening.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. We know that everyone is so busy, and certainly given the topic of this evening, we know how much busier life has become and what an unusual circumstance we find ourselves in. So thank you for sharing your evening with us, and hopefully some of these tips and tricks that Shelby and I share with you are going to be helpful. This is one of 3 in our distance learning series that we have here at MeBe. This first presentation today is going to be prepping for success. So it's going to be, how do we get our children to the table and participating in these really important academics? We also have our part 2 of our series, webinar series next week. That's going to be, now you're at the table, now what? So what do we do to keep your child engaged, and some ways in which we can adapt academic tasks to fit the needs of you and your family. And then our third series will be related to some fine motor and handwriting activities to do at home, since we realize now more than ever that's going to be an additional task to add to your already full plate. Whoops, I skipped ahead here. So first and foremost, I wanted to introduce ourselves. I'll go first. My name is Angela Ochoa, and I am the MeBe Clinical Director of Occupational Therapy. I joined MeBe in November 2019, and I came on as the Clinical Director for OT to basically start and bring occupational therapy to our wonderful services that we provide here at MeBe, which we'll talk a little bit more in just the next couple slides. Me, myself, I've been an occupational therapist working in pediatrics for about 12 years. I've worked in and around Southern California all of those years. I actually grew up, born and raised in San Diego, which is where our MeBe headquarters are located. And went to UCSD for my undergraduate work, went up to Northern California to get my master's degree in occupational therapy, and then very quickly headed back down to San Diego, and I've been here ever since. So I'm really happy to join MeBe. Occupational therapy is newest to what we provide at our practice, and it's been a really wonderful experience to provide services to our already really great, rich therapies that we provide, and have opportunities such as this one tonight where we can collaborate across disciplines and certainly with our families. And I'll hand it over to Shelby.
Hi everyone, I'm Shelby Schwindler. I am here in our office in Los Angeles. I've been with MeBe for 5 years now. I started in the headquarters in San Diego. I've been through the journey of ABA from the start. I was an RBT, loved the field, became a supervisor, loved the field even more, and I am now spreading all of the awareness, support, and help that I can to families here in LA now. I was born in LA, so I'm happy to be back. I got my bachelor's here at Cal State Northridge, traveled to San Diego for my master's in my BCBA program, fell in love with MeBe and brought it back to my hometown. And I am so happy to be collaborating with Angela tonight. She has so many great ideas, and it's a really awesome opportunity for us to be able to take our 2 perspectives, the ABA perspective and the OT kind of look on things, and put them together so you guys have a well-rounded idea of how to support your kids during distance learning and throughout the day.
Awesome. So to give a little bit of background about MeBe, MeBe is about being me. We integrate research-based strategies and provide personal attention of therapies that are engaging, flexible, and certainly customized to your child's needs. So the services that we provide here at MeBe are applied behavioral analysis, or ABA, occupational therapy, and speech and language therapy. We're very fortunate. As we've mentioned before, our headquarters are based in San Diego. We also provide services in Los Angeles and the Bay Area. We have a clinic in Seattle, and we just recently expanded our practice to include Denver and Phoenix. So we're really happy to be able to provide these really wonderful services, these foundational developmental services to families in many different areas, and really just, provide that really great quality care that we know MeBe provides. Certainly, if you don't already, please follow us on Instagram and Facebook at MeBe Family. And then here is our website and our main phone number if you have any questions about the presentation tonight or future presentations or services for your family and your child. So as I mentioned earlier, today's topics are going to be about getting your child to the table and what that looks like. So first, we have to consider setting up the environment. We're also going to talk today about providing visual schedules and using them in your day and seeing how that can support you in getting your child ready for academics in the home. We're going to discuss breaks, what they are, and how we can use them effectively and efficiently at home. Getting to the table, as I mentioned, is going to be one of the biggest hurdles. We find that a lot of our families that we provide services for are saying, we know that we have a lot to do at home now, and it's hard enough to get my kid to the table. So we're going to hopefully tackle some of those topics today, give you some tips and tricks to make things a little bit easier, and just overall some helpful tips from an ABA and occupational therapy perspective.
All right, so we need to just get to the table, right? Our kids, that's where they're doing their distance learning. This is where computer is set up. But we want to make sure before we're even at the table that we are ready for it. So we're just going to set up the space. So maybe class hasn't started. These are some things you can do before class starts, or some things you can do over the weekend to make sure that once your child does get to the table, things are ready for them. So one of the biggest things is to reduce distractions. Our kids can be easily overstimulated by sound, by lights, things around them that they can touch. Even the chair that they're sitting on might be too smushy for them. So we want to reduce these distractions as much as possible. And the things that we can control, we want to. So that includes things like the TV. Once class starts, make sure that other siblings or grandmas watching the news, they have their headphones on. So if they're listening to music, or, the TV's off, if it's in the same room that we're doing learning in. These are just some simple things that we can do to get ready for class. If you're the one working with your child, have your phone on silent so that you're not distracted. You don't want, just because your kid could get distracted doesn't mean you can't either. So both of you should be attentive to the learning. We have some ideas of what you can do, to keep the noise level down. We can give other siblings in the house some independent work. This isn't to say to give them their own academics that you have to help them with. Just something simple, let them color, give them some Play-Doh, something that that they can do on their own, where you won't have to really go back and forth between your kids with. It'll help reduce your stress level also, because you'll be able to focus. Your fans are on and your bellies are full. I think this one's really quite important with the heat of the summer and that transition time. Have the fan on and ready so that your kids are not melting in their chairs. Get a little desk fan for them, something to keep it blowing so that you are in a comfortable environment. But keep your bellies full. Have a breakfast. Make sure you drink your coffee or your tea. We want to make sure that being hangry is not going to impact what we're doing in class that day. So we don't want the kids just say, oh, I haven't eaten, I need to, leave the classroom and go get a snack. Those things are some things that we can do before we even get to the table, right? And make sure our kids are ready for the day. And then another distraction that we find happens even not just with our distance learning, but kind of all around in ABA for our in-home sessions as well. We find that there's more than one teacher. And when that happens, you, as the parent, might be giving directions, and then dad walks by and wants to give the kid the same direction again. And then we have the teacher on the screen kind of yelling at the kid, hey, don't forget to write your name. And having all of these voices and noises coming in really can overwhelm the kiddo. So establish before class starts who is going to be the one directing class and supporting your kiddo during class, so that they know who to focus on and who to go for help when they get into their session. So I think those are just some really easy and simple things we can do to reduce the noise, the surroundings, all those distractions that are kind of going to get us not to pay attention. Once we have those things taken care of, we can prep our table. So prepping your table is going to be something that you do before the kid gets to the table, right? It's going to be well prepared for them. This includes having that identified workspace so they know where to go. So when you tell them, okay, Miss Smith is ready, let's get to class, they know where to take a seat. Where's the computer set up? If it's in the dining room or if they have their own desk that they're working at, make sure they know what workspace they can join. You want to make sure this space is clean and clear. Those are some visual distractions that might come up. So they can have the things that their materials that the teacher sends home for them, but you don't want any additional toys on the table. You don't want to have, your eggs from breakfast spilled over. Make sure that your space is somewhere that the kids will be able to kind of sit and feel like they're ready to learn just like they would in a classroom. Let them take ownership of their space. Have a table prepared so that they care about it. This is, your spot. This is where you get to sit. Sister doesn't get to sit in this chair. When you're in class, this is your space. The kids really take pride in that, and you can see that when they go to the table, they'll let you know, hey, my teacher's here. I can't talk to you right now. We want them to feel that connection right now. And make sure when you have the table prepared that their materials are easily accessible, whether that's, in a stack on the side, a drawer that they just open and pull out, keeping those things easily accessible so you're not running around the house, gathering your scissors or getting your coloring pencils. And those are things I encourage you to ask the teacher too, like, okay, in today's lessons or in next week's lessons, are there any additional things I need to have ready? Teachers are really willing to be supportive at this time, and you just have to ask, right? It's all about that communication and letting the teacher know, hey, what are we doing? How can I get my kid ready? So those are just some ways to set up your table and get the kids ready before class. One other really great idea to set up the space is before they start class, make sure they know how to use the Zoom, how to use their new classroom environment. Our kids don't have to, when they're in school, push all these buttons. They just call out when they have a great idea. So letting them know how to use their Zoom or their Schoology or whatever it is, it's going to be really helpful for you. We can practice those things. Call your sister, right? Call your grandma on Zoom or on FaceTime so the kids can kind of get familiar with seeing themselves on the screen. If this is something novel and they see their picture on the screen and then they're like, oh, wow, right? They're going to get really close to it. They're going to check themselves out. So we want them to have that novelty already taken care of and be familiar with this new experience that we're going through. So I have some pictures here of things that we can use for our kids to get them familiar. For older kids, we can give them exactly what the definition of these images on their screen mean so that they can understand it both visually, verbally, receptively. This picture means my friends can hear me versus this picture means they can't hear me and they can't see me. In the middle here is the same icons, but it's without those additional words. So this is for some of our kids who just are visual learners and we just need to point to the image that we are referencing. Oh, look, honey, we want our mic to look like this green one. We have to push the button. Or letting them know, oh, it's our turn to talk. We need to speak up, and touching the image as you go. This gets them really familiar with how class and this new class format is going to work. Okay.
So and kind of to piggyback on what Shelby mentioned is really considering the environment. So there's ways in which Shelby already described that are really wonderful strategies to set the environment up for success and really consider what's available in the home and how we can set up the environment to really be conducive to learning and practicing these new skills. So Shelby mentioned too that, you know, sights and sounds in the environment can really impact attention. In occupational therapy, one of our, you know, hallmark focuses in pediatrics is sensory processing. And so part of that is being aware of the input and the information in and around our environment. So certainly recognizing if there's a TV on in the background, that's going to impact learning. If there's someone that's talking on the phone in the background, that's going to impact attention. We know home is not a perfect environment for learning at all times, and recognizing that that might not be an option to turn off the TV or turn off some of those distractors. But with those distractors present, you're going to have some challenges with behavior and some challenges with attention. So recognizing that this is new for your child, this is certainly new for you and the other family members that are in the home or the other people in the home, and trying to determine the best way to set up the environment. And Shelby's given some really great strategies of things to consider and ways in which to look at the space that you'll be working in. To give some visuals here too, talking about, you know, really having a clean workspace. We're not looking for you to go out and buy a lot of different things, but just recognizing the importance of designated spaces for work materials. So you can see how this top space right here is a pretty distracting, disorganized space. And for a lot of kids, it's hard for them to maintain organization when they're at home in this environment. It might be difficult for them, not just at home too. And so you can see this little one here at the bottom that's working. His pencils are in a cup. So that gives a really clear defined space. When you're done with the pencil, it goes in the cup. When you're done with the scissors, it goes in the cup. Your iPad goes here, your screen goes here. Giving these really clear distinctions visually can also really be supportive of an organized kind of a way to attend. Knowing what to look at visually is really hard for some of our children. So distracting environments can impede their ability to really take in. They're not quite sure where to look or who to pay attention to, as Ms. Shelby mentioned earlier. So one way to do that is just giving really clear demarcation on the table as to what is, you know, available for them at the time. Some other strategies and suggestions you may consider: this really wonderful parent utilize some vertical space in their home. The table is clear, but everything the child will need is here on the wall right next to them. This other really creative, clever parent is coming up with other visual boundaries where we can use maybe a poster board and attach materials to the poster board to create another visual barrier. So one, the child is you know, really focusing and attending on their own space in front of them. And two, everything they need is right there. One really great thing too, as Ms. Shelby mentioned too, is that the idea of taking ownership over your space. You can see each one of these little classrooms that's created by these poster boards are very individual. So that's another way to perhaps get some more buy-in. Like, isn't this exciting? We've got this really great room that we've created. What I really love about this is we understand at home, there's not a ton of space a lot. So what we can do is these are mobile opportunities. Once we're done with school, fold it up, take it away. This kiddo right here has all of their school supplies in a box. When it's school time, it comes out. When school is over, we put it away. That really helps punctuate the experience too, is really, we know that there's a beginning and an end to everything that we're doing. And it's really important to, as much as your child is willing and as much as you can, really encourage as much ownership and opportunities for, we're going to put things away and we're going to take them out. That also sets the stage for what the expectations are. It's school time. Guess what? We've got all of our school supplies at the table. So that's one way to consider setting up the environment that might help support more engagement and more willingness to participate, at least initially. Another big thing in occupational therapy is posture and position. A lot of the activities we're having kids do could be challenging. They may have difficulties with some fine motor skills. They may be emerging in some of these other areas. We know that attention is sometimes challenging at home, and the environment's not always conducive to supporting kids in the way that it might be more so in a classroom or other structured settings. So some things to attend to is posture, first and foremost. So you can see the couple pictures of some kiddos here sitting in some chairs. We've got this kiddo sitting with a really wide base. His legs are out the side and he's leaned really far forward in his chair. This is a very common posture for kids that may have challenges with posture and position. So what we find in OT is they're going to tolerate this for about 5 minutes and then they're up and away. It's very fatiguing for kids to sit and attend, let alone from a cognitive perspective, mentally attending. But now we're also asking them to sit in these positions for long periods. So a lot of the schools and the schools that maybe your children have attended have lower tables with, a lower kind of footprint in the classroom, lower chairs, because what we're working on is promoting good posture and position at the table. If their feet and lower body are supported, as this really wonderful picture demonstrates, the likelihood of your child being more successful is that much greater. At home, that's not always possible. So some things to consider: if we've got a tall chair where your child's feet are dangling, like you see here, this little kiddo right here, he's got one foot up, he's got his other foot down here, he's sitting on this really great booster chair, but his feet are dangling. One strategy and suggestion could be bring something that helps support his feet underneath the table that he's sitting at. We know that, like we said, space at home could be very limited. I know it is at my house. And recognizing ways to adapt what's already there instead of changing things, going to get stuff, is going to really be your best bet, and certainly the most cost-effective strategy. So here, what we have is a kiddo that's using a chair, or you could use a box. On this next page, you'll see. We've got some other strategies you can see here, and this kid in the top right corner is using a plastic bin to bring the floor up to him. These are really important considerations because we know that posture and position is important for attention and certainly for success with fine motor and handwriting skills. We're going to talk a lot about posture and position too in the next 2 webinars. So if you are interested in some other strategies, we're going to be talking a lot more about different ways to help your child attend. But this is certainly an introduction to that. You can see how some parents are getting really creative and using side tables. They're lower, and guess what? If we've got a poof or a pillow, kids can sit on that. And then that way that brings them lower to the ground and provides more support for them on their feet and certainly in their back. So you can see here, that's what's going on at this table. They're all sitting at the coffee table. Each kid has their own designated workspace, and they're all sitting lower to the ground. One option. Another option is if your child is getting fatigued, as we mentioned, sitting at the table can be really challenging. So sitting on the floor and working may be an option. A lot of kiddos that have challenges with their core, their postural stability, may choose maybe some ineffective and not really wonderful supportive positions like this W sitting or some other ways to sit on the floor. Consider maybe using a desk or a lap desk. Have your child sit on the floor and bring the desk up to them. So that way they're in a much more supported position, they're upright and much more conducive for learning and attending. A couple other strategies and things to consider. You can see here that this kiddo's in this really beautiful table that's down low, but also is their computer. So just using something as simple as some paper to rest the laptop, all of a sudden now they're sitting much more upright because their visual surface is now in line with their head and neck. And we know if any of us are working at desks for a long period of times, it does weigh on you and it does create an uncomfortable sitting position for a very long period of time. So we want to see if we can support our kids as best as possible. We also know too that, as Ms. Shelby mentioned, sometimes the chairs we're sitting in are kind of squishy, and squishy chairs can be uncomfortable because maybe the feeling of the chair on our body is uncomfortable. But more so, what can also happen is these squishy kind of office chairs don't create the best posture and position for these little bodies. So one strategy could be, is in addition to using this really great plastic bin to bring the floor up to his feet, you can see also there's a more firm pillow that's sitting behind that's promoting a more upright posture and position. Because sitting back like this isn't necessarily conducive to attention and certainly putting them in a really great position to use their hands for writing, typing, coloring, scissors, any other kind of academic tasks that are being asked at the time.
Those were all really helpful, Angela. I think I need to get a back pillow for myself. So once we have all of those things in mind, what chair their posture needs to be in, which table is low enough for them to sit in, the space is prepped. Now we need them to get to that space. Get classes ready to get started. So we need them to get to the table, and we want to do it in a very positive way so that school doesn't become a negative experience or set us up for any behaviors. So when we're getting them to the table, we want to do what's called priming. And priming is when we just give verbal warnings before something is going to happen. So we prime with transition warnings. Okay, you know, in 5 minutes, class is going to start, right? And then, okay, in 3 minutes, class is going to start. Okay, we have 1 minute until class. And then they kind of are prepared for that transition as it comes. It's not all of a sudden, oh, okay, screen's on, let's go. And you have to rush them over there, right? We want to get them prepared and let them know what's going to come next. We can also use that by having first then language in our transitions. So we say, okay, first you're going to eat breakfast, then you're going to come to the table and have class. Or first, you know, you're going to sit at the computer, then we're going to be able to play a game. And using that language so they know what those expectations are, so they can be better prepared for those transitions from preferred to non-preferred activities. We want to offer them choice. Whenever possible, we want kids to be in charge of their experience and let them feel like they have that power. A lot of the times as a kid, parents are telling you what you have to do, teachers are telling you what you have to do. So when they're given that opportunity to make choice for themselves, they really thrive on that. So whenever possible, let them choose. Which chair are you going to sit in today? Are you going to sit in the blue chair or are you going to sit in the red chair? Which one should we pull over? Okay, great. That is an awesome idea. We're going to sit in the blue chair and we're going to use the green pillow behind us today. Awesome. We can also let them know which, opportunity of which crayons do you want to use. Our activity is to color this barn scene. And if your kid wants to color the barn blue, let them color that barn. It's the most important thing is that they are engaged and involved and enjoying that learning experience. Do you want to color this horse blue or do you want to color the horse green? Oh, you want to do it in yellow? Awesome. Thank you for sharing. Here's the yellow crayon. Let's do it. And letting them have that choice and gives them that, like Angela mentioned, that buy-in. They really want to do something when they get to pick it. Don't limit them to how they get to the table. You tell them if they want to. I did this today. We jumped from our puzzle back to our table, and it makes it more fun to do it. So let them know, okay, it's time for class. Let's walk over. Oh, okay, let's bear crawl. Really get that input in our arms, or let's jump to the table. I bet you I can walk backwards to the table. Like, make that transition, even though it's to something they don't really want to do, you can make that transition fun. And it's really important that you do that transition with them rather than calling them over. So you don't want to already be at the table and say, okay, come on, let's go. Because they're just going to ignore you and they're going to stay where they are. You want to be there engaged. Say, okay, let's hop on over to class. Jump, 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 and get them to class. You can also kind of think ahead of the schedule and have them already at the table before class starts. So if class is at 9 a.m. and they are having breakfast, let them eat breakfast right at 8:30, because by the time they're done with breakfast and you've removed the plate, they don't have to leave one location to another. They're already at that table and you can just trade out that plate for the tablet and set them up for class. So if they're already at the table, whether it's for breakfast or coloring or Play-Doh, or they're doing something preferred already at the table, that's a great simple transition because they're already in that environment. Once we have got them, so thinking about once we're getting them to the table, In our next webinar, we'll discuss more in depth how to keep them at the table and a lot of strategies, but some really simple things that we can take away from this is the idea of visual supports and decreasing wait times. So I talked about not calling them over when you want them to transition to the table. Also, don't go to the table before you're ready. Make sure that they're logged in before, so that once they come and they sit and they're ready for class, there's none of that wait time where they can get distracted and be like, okay, well, where's my teacher? If they get to the chair and they already see their friends on the screen, they're going to be ready to go. The use of visual supports, I can't stress this enough, is helpful for everyone. Visual supports can be used for any age and any level of skill because of the way we're going to individualize it. So schedules, creating a schedule and a routine can be done with either just pictures, if we have a younger kid, or we can do it written, thinking of to-do lists that we create for ourselves or things we write on a calendar. So we can have pictures. Okay, here's a picture of the sun. That's when we wake up. Here's a picture of our plate, because that's when we eat breakfast. And then here's a picture of our teacher, because in the morning we wake up, we eat breakfast, and then we see our teacher. And every day it's the same 3 steps in the morning. Okay, so you can make it really simple, or you can have it, a written schedule, and your kid just checks off a box or crosses it out, or even crumples up the paper and tosses it at the end of the day. So that's how they know that they're done with their schedule. We're still going to use that first then language. First we wake up, then we have breakfast. Last, we're going to see Mrs. Smith, and making sure that our schedules are manageable. So in my example, I just used 3 steps, right? It was just waking up, breakfast, and class. We want to make this something manageable. It's not, okay, we're going to wake up, we're going to brush our teeth, we're going to, put on our clothes. These are all things we're going to do in our morning routine, but it's on our schedule as this one single icon so that when they see it, they can reference it and know, okay, I need to wake up, and waking up includes X, Y, and Z. So if we have too many things on the schedule, that can get overwhelming. Think about yourselves, right? If our list is too long, we don't want to do it either. Setting timers so the kids know when it's time for a break or when it's time to be even just all done with class. Make sure that you're using digital timers. So the timers on your phones work really great because you can see it as it counts down. It gets smaller and smaller. Analog clocks are unhelpful because we don't necessarily learn how to read clocks anymore in class. So in that same respect, the numbers and the concept of time itself, if you tell a kid, do you want 100 pennies or do you want $50, right? They're going to go for the 100 pennies because that number is larger. Same thing with time and with clocks. 1 o'clock to them is no different than 4 o'clock. But when they see it on that timer and that countdown, rather than just some arrows, that gives them a better progression of the time, right? That's that visual support for them, okay?
You can tell we love visuals. So here's another visual to really kind of hone in on why visuals are important. I think, Shelby did a really great job describing all of the important ways in which you can incorporate visuals into your child's day and some things to consider as to why visuals are important here. Visuals are permanent. So I like that idea that visuals are here to stay. So if I say something and then you maybe didn't hear it, you might be either not processing that language, especially a lot of our kiddos do have challenges with processing language and auditory input. So what's really lovely is having a visual there to support learning. See, so earlier I said that we were going to wake up, then we were going to have breakfast and then see Mrs. Smith. Remember, we talked about that yesterday. Here it is again. It gives us a really great opportunity to use visuals to support and reinforce what it is that we discussed. And the same thing too is that visuals are transferable between environments and people. So if we've got a babysitter, if we've got dad, if we have, someone kind of helping in intermittently while we're establishing this really wonderful home schedule for distance learning, that visual schedule or that visual can go to the next person and the next person. So everybody is using uniform language and really demonstrating the same expectations for each individual in the home or helping your child. Visuals, as Shelby said, help all students. They can really help it build independence. There was a suggestion too that Shelby mentioned where using a visual schedule and having your child actually satisfyingly check off the list or crumple it up and throw it away. These are tangible ways that the children know what's expected of them and what's kind of next. The other thing I really like about this particular picture is talking about how visuals have no attitude. There's no tone, there's no frustration, and there's no disapproval. What visuals, what I always like to say about visuals is it really eliminates that headbutting or that kind of need for control that happens. It's not mom saying it, so I'm going to battle mom through this activity. It's on your schedule. What can I say? It's that objective tone available to your child that's going to say, hey man, it's on the schedule, so we got to do it. It's not mom saying, well, it's on this, I said do this. It is on the schedule. In order for us to satisfyingly cross it off or to earn what we're working for or to be done with this very challenging tasks, we're going to use this visual. It's right there. And so what I like about that too is it gives some opportunity to have some objectivity in a situation that could potentially also cause some conflict and some arguments at the table. And then certainly, as also Ms. Shelby, just one other moment, Ms. Shelby mentioned is the need for understanding visuals as a way of timers. So they use like a time timer or some of those digital watches or clocks really help reduce anxiety for some of our kiddos, recognizing that this is my only expectation today. And then after that, we're going to do something else. It's just these things on the schedule is all we got to worry about today. Instead of hearing constant, well, first this, then this, then this. Sometimes visuals help reduce anxiety for our kiddos. Next week in our Series 2 webinar, we're going to be talking a lot more about visuals and ways in which we can set kids up for even greater success. So stay tuned for that. One of the other things that we talk a lot about in ABA and in OT are breaks. We look at breaks different ways. There's kind of two ways to consider breaks. Breaks can be used as a reward. So I did something and now I've earned a break. Breaks can also be used to help increase attention and focus. It's intended that the break itself has inherent value that's going to increase attention and focus so that kids can return to the activity and focus and attend. Breaks are used for different reasons, and both of these are great. And so we're going to talk a little bit about how OT and ABA talk about breaks a little bit. And again, next week, we're also going to talk about this even more in depth as well.
So our ABA perspective for breaks, as you can see from this great image here, is all about earning that reward and taking that break fully and relaxing for that 5 minutes or that 10 minutes that you get to. They are based on the idea of positive reinforcement, so that if you do something or you complete the expectation or you follow through with a task, we want to see you do that behavior more. So we're going to reinforce you or provide this reward to that good behavior in the hopes that that good behavior will increase over time. So we want to make sure that we're giving breaks or our time with mom or time with their favorite toy in conjunction with that positive or preferred behavior expectation that we're seeing. So when the kids are doing, completing their work, that's when they would get their break. So their breaks can be earned either by the completion of work. Okay, we need to do, 2 pages of math and then you can have a break, or it can be based on duration. So, okay, we're gonna work for 20 minutes and then you can take a break. So depending on the skill level or the activity that you're looking at, you can provide a break for either work completion or duration of activity. But make sure when you do give that break, the length of your break is equal to the effort put into the break. So if you have a kiddo who is just doing their first 3 math problems right? You're not going to give them a 20-minute break for work that they only took 5 minutes on. It should almost be the opposite. You should really be seeing at least 10 to 20 minutes of strong work ethic for equal to 5 to 10 minutes of an earned break. And make sure that you don't set your expectations too high. You don't want to push your kiddo too much. You want them to be successful. So you want to provide them that break before they have the behavior, right? Because we want to give them the break for engaging in the appropriate behavior of doing work, get the break, not do too much work, cry and whine, and then you get a break because you were crying and whining. Mm-hmm. Okay, so making sure that you're reinforcing the appropriate behavior when it occurs. Oftentimes, these behaviors that are occurring are because they want to get out of their work. We call that an escape or an avoidance behavior. So when we have that type of behavior occurring, we want to replace it. And the appropriate way to get out of our work would just to say, hey, Mom, I need a break right now. Or, hey, can I just have 2 more minutes before we go back to work? And those are the times that we want to say, absolutely. Thank you for using your words. Here's another 2 minutes. I really appreciate your calm body. Have fun. And compared to, hey, it's time to go back to work. They're crying, they're screaming, and you say, oh, you know what? I'm going to let you be for another 2 minutes, and then we'll go back to the table. So making sure that the breaks are being given for that appropriate established behavior. And don't forget when they're on their break to let them do something that they choose. This is the difference between a reward and a reinforcer. A reward is something we think you're gonna like, and a reinforcer is something that you tell us you like. So you do all your work, like, great, we're gonna take a break and eat some pumpkin seeds. Well, I don't care about pumpkin seeds, this break sucks, right? So you wanna do things that they like, right? Okay, you've earned your break. What do you wanna do? Do you wanna play with your Play-Doh? No. Do you wanna read your book? Yes, great. Let's read the book. So you want to make sure that they are enjoying the break so that it's meaningful to them.
So true. So we all need breaks. And it is important to really recognize the distinctions between those different types of breaks that we're talking about. So we've got the child chooses the break and it's child driven. OT perspective on breaks are more structured. They're structured opportunities to move, to support attention and focus. So we usually in occupational therapy refer to breaks as ways to break up tasks that are hard. But the intent is to always return to the activity that you're working on. So again, kind of harkening back to what Shelby was mentioning with the using timers and things like that. Sometimes we'll use timers, we'll count, we're gonna do 5 jumping jacks, and then we're gonna come back to the table. We might use music. We are going to ride our bike for the full duration of this one song. And then when it's over, oh, time to go back to the table, hooray! The opportunities here that you find with using movement in these structured breaks gives kids opportunities. We talked a lot about posture and position being really important because sitting, stationary, being in these more seated kind of sedentary positions is also fatiguing for a number of reasons. Certainly, there's a lot more of that happening even more now at homes, given that we're not really able to leave our home and do all the things that we like to do before, especially things like go to the park and beaches and things. There's a lot of limitations to what we can and can't go and do. And so what we do in OT is kind of try and embed opportunities to move that are going to support attention and focus. If we've got a kid who's working so hard and they just cannot focus, that's it. Let's get up, let's set a timer, and we're gonna do some dancing, we're gonna do some jumping, we're gonna do some crawling through a tunnel, we're gonna go outside, we're gonna throw the ball for the dog. Whatever it is, these are intended to be sensory-based and supportive, but they are structured. So the difference here is it's gonna break, these types of breaks are also gonna be selected by the adult. The child can choose, so maybe you give them 2 options. Are we gonna do jumping jacks or wall push-ups? Are we gonna do crawling through the tunnel, or are we gonna go outside for 5 minutes? Whatever that is, they can certainly choose the break, but it's already been provided by the parent. The idea, it's structured, It's intended to get their bodies moving and to get their brains working again. There's a lot of research out there that supports that a moving body supports a really moving brain. And so in OT, it's important for us to really embed these opportunities. This is different than what Shelby was discussing, which was when we're using a break to really take a break and go on vacation, you take that break. These sensory-based supportive structured breaks are intended differently. We want to give these breaks as we see, and we're going to talk a lot more about this next week with how we can kind of determine the distinctions and ways, what are some examples of maybe these structured breaks that we can provide that are really sensory rich and supportive to your child coming back to the table and completing the tasks. So that's how we kind of make the distinction. Both are really excellent. Breaks are really important for our bodies and our minds and our soul. So what's really valuable is recognizing the distinctions and when to use them.
Some general helpful tips that we felt we just wanted you to think about and consider throughout your days, not just with distance learning, but that entire experience. Think about not giving your highest value reinforcer before that academic period. That is just setting yourself up for a behavior to occur. If you are going to take away that iPad first thing in the morning when it's time for school and the kid's still tired, they're probably not going to respond well, and they're going to associate school with this negative experience of losing their favorite toy. So in the mornings, you can let them do some preferred activities, but know that if you give them their highest valued reinforcer, it's going to be harder in the end. And consider using that highest value as that break reward, right? We're going to save that for when you've earned it. You're going to, work hard, do your best, and then you can have that really on that ice cream, or you can have 10 minutes on the iPad, things like that. So getting them motivated with those high value reinforcers and putting that after, right? So first do your work, then you can get this activity. Thinking about throughout your day, pick your battles. Things are really hard for everyone right now. It's a new experience for you, for your kids. Everyone is struggling, right? Not just you. Your kids are struggling in school. It's kind of weird for them to have it class through a screen. So think about picking your battles. Do you really need, to fight with your kid about coloring the house blue when, as long as they're coloring and having that experience, that positive experience with you and making memories and participating in class, right? Maybe you want to save your energy for that battle when they are trying to skip dinner and not eat their broccoli and just run into the freezer and grab a popsicle. That's when you want to set the boundaries and have your authority and let them know, like, that's not going to be okay, right? So making sure you save your energy throughout the day, pick your battles, choose wisely.
Yeah, that can be so tricky too, because this new distance learning experience has created, parents are now parents, but they're also teachers and therapists and everything else that your kid was used to getting outside of the home. So we recognize the challenges not only on your family dynamic, but certainly on you who's implementing a lot of what we're suggesting today.
Yeah, you don't need to be perfect, right? It's okay. Okay.
Yeah. It's not what you say, it's how you say it. So we recognize now school's going to happen. It's a requirement. We know that certain states and certain areas and certain school districts and certain teachers, they all have expectations, and it's on us now as parents to really and to really do it. And so one thing I always want to think about is, how am I presenting this to a child? And we've given some strategies throughout this that kind of suggest, like, do you want blue or yellow when you're coloring the horse? It doesn't matter. Your kid can choose, and then they go for it. But what's another really good thing to think about too is, if you're saying things like, do you want to come over and do some schoolwork? Guess what the answer is going to be? No. And I know it is, because we all fall into this trap, and I recognize that it's a trap that's very easy to fall into. But one thing to consider is, when it's time for business, it's time for business. So really try and eat and steer clear from, do you want to come over to the table and do some work, to, it's time to come over to the table and work. Here's our visual schedule. We're going to do math first, then we're going to cut some things, and then we're going to take a break. And giving those, setting clear expectations from the start can be really, really helpful. I know it's not always easy, and structure is really hard, and schedules are really difficult when you've got lots of different children in the home, maybe all doing distance learning at different times. Mom and dad or whoever else, the caregivers in the home, are also responsible for doing their own thing. So we recognize that everybody is busy, and sometimes structure and schedules don't always fit into the day, but recognizing the importance of setting expectations from the start. Today is Monday. Monday is when we do 1, 2, and 3. Today is Friday. Friday, at the end of the day on Friday, we can go here. Whatever that is that you want, recognizing that as much as it's important for you to know the schedule, mom and dad, it's really important for your child, depending upon where they're at developmentally, to recognize what the expectations are and the kind of flow of the day and certainly the week. Because things are very different, and understanding that I'm going to need you to work 3 hours today, but our 3 hours are going to look like this. Or I need to have you work 6 hours today. Oh my goodness. But our 6 hours are going to look like this. And recognizing that kids are going to have a hard time with that, and that's okay. But sticking to it is really what we're hoping we can give you some strategies and suggestions for today. So that's it for this portion of the webinar. We really thank you for your time today and being with us, and hopefully the tips and tricks were helpful to you. We do know that this just scratches the surface with a lot of what we're doing with some of these strategies and suggestions for distance learning. We do hope to see you, or to hopefully that you'll get the recording version from the next 2 series that we have based on this really important topic. And certainly don't forget to follow us at MeBe Family, or you can check us out online at mebefamily.com.
And we do have a question that came into the chat. So their question is actually about ending the session. So, you know, maybe the kiddos like to play on the tablet or don't want to put their Chromebook or iPad down. So do you have some advice for how to help end the session, you know, when to step away from the screen?
For the adult to step away?
I think for the kid didn't want to put their Chromebook away.
Oh, to put the Chromebook away to go to class.
I think they wanted to, so it sounds like on the question was that the kiddo was working on the Chromebook and like kind of playing around on it, posting videos into the Google Classroom.
Okay.
So doing something that they weren't supposed to do.
Well, one, I don't know if it works on Chromebooks. I know on iPads you can use the guided access feature in settings. It's super helpful because when you set that up, the kid can only access the screen that you've approved, and they cannot exit that screen or open any other apps without a password. So if you have access to an iPad, I think that is one way to really limit what they're doing. And I do believe you should be able to like look back on your settings and see how long a kiddo is using specific apps, so you can see that day if they were on their Schoology for the appropriate 4 hours, or if they were only on for 30 minutes and they were doing Roblox for 4 hours. And you can kind of reference that and let your kiddo know, like, hey, I'm watching you.
And then kind of going to that same thing too, as setting expectations. The expectation right now is that we're not playing videos. Nope, we're not doing it. I know videos are really fun, but the classroom is not the place to post videos or do inappropriate things or be on your Chromebook in ways that aren't expected during that time. So some strategies too could be, because we know that it's really hard to stop kind of cold turkey with some of these behaviors that we see. So one thing could be too is to even set a timer that's within full view of your child, just behind. You've got to go 30 minutes, and then we'll give you an option that's a more appropriate option for videos or whatever it is. And then if you can hang in there for that 30 minutes and not post videos and not do inappropriate stuff that you're not supposed to be doing during school, then you've earned something. And maybe we start small, knowing that the expectation is it's going to be the whole day eventually. So there's ways to kind of incrementally support that too. And I'm certain that If your child's currently receiving ABA services, check with your supervisor as well, because they're going to have lots of behavioral modification strategies in addition to that. In OT, we utilize these, but we don't set you up with the program like our ABA components do, our PALs.
Also thinking if you have a mirror that you can move around, set the kid up at their desk and just put a mirror behind them. They won't know why the mirror is there, but that way you can kind of see their screen while you're on the other side doing your own work. And I'm like, oh, how did you know? Right? Mom always has eyes in the back of her head. She knows.
Love her.
Yeah.
Good. Well, let's give it a minute to see if anybody else has any questions. So if you do have questions, just remember we can't hear you. So put a question or a comment in the chat. While we're doing that, I have another poll question for you. So I'll get this ready. And meanwhile, if you have any other questions, just go ahead and enter them into the chat. So you can just provide us some feedback. We are doing these MeBe Learning webinars to provide helpful and useful information. And so I would love it if you would just let us know how helpful this was today for us. The feedback is really beneficial for us as presenters and as the MeBe team as we're preparing for future topics as well. So I see some people coming in as Angela and Shelby wait patiently for their feedback. So thank you for everybody.
All feedback is welcome. It is okay. All of it is welcome.
Yeah, so pretty helpful and very helpful. So that's great. We'll share that with you.
Oh, right on. Thanks, guys.
Yeah. And then one more question for you about future webinars. So just to see what topics you're interested in learning about, we do have another webinar scheduled for next Thursday about supporting distance learning, and that'll be also at 5:30 next Thursday. And then Angela is presenting another webinar on October 1st about fine motor skills and practicing those at home. So we'd love to hear what else you would like to know so we can schedule some additional webinars as well. So I'll let everybody chime in here. We got a thank you in the chat. So thank you very much. I said thank you. Great tips. All right. And I see people responding here. You can pick more than one topic as well. If you're interested in more than one topic, go ahead. So I'll get everybody a chance and I will close this out. Oh, I think I just missed somebody. Sorry. So a lot of interest in different topics here. So we will be covering the Angela and your presentation, some fine motor skills and pre-writing and handwriting, and activities to do at home too. And our speech and language team will be providing some language and communication skills topics for us in the near future. So it's great. And social skills, I'm sure will be something that will come up. I know that's something we hear a lot about.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, all right. I don't see any other questions in the chat, so we can sign off. Thank you very much for spending your evening with us. You can check back on the MeBe family website here for the recording. I will send that out in an email. I'll try to get that out to you tomorrow if possible. And feel free to give us a call or send us a message if you have any other comments or questions. So thank you so much. Have a nice rest of your evening.